of the meeting, we reached some certain resolutions. Part of the resolutions is that as a committed labor center, that we agreed or that we abide by the rule of law and due process. We will honor the invitation of the Nigerian police because we are not faceless organization, but we believe that we need an extension of time after consultation with our lawyers. And secondly, we resolve that in an event our Congress president was arrested or detained at any moment, we put our appellate on red alert to mobilize our membership across the country, that all workers in this country should down-tool their services. This is the resolution.
So then we just decided to give you, a timeline of this situation with the NLC and the police, just so you can understand what's been happening in those days. But that's not all we have for you today. Joining us on our conversation about this situation that's caused a lot of uproar everywhere is former Acting Inspector, Assistant Inspector General of Police, Mr. Wilson Inalegwu is joining us here in the studio. It's good to have you on the program, sir.
Yeah, so I'm delighted to be here. Good morning.
Let's talk about it, because we've heard different points of view from different sectors of society. We hear people who are afraid that, this could be a way of shrinking the civil space or the civic space a little bit more. The expression is not there anymore. You're at fear of being arrested. But then there are other people who say, look, you've just been invited for questioning. If you haven't done anything wrong, why can't you just go in there and explain yourself? But just so we can have the full details, if you have those details, of what's really happening here.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have any details, but I can tell you as a matter of procedure. When there are suspicions that either you are involved in a crime, or suspected to have been involved in a crime, it could be based on information, it could be based on any factors, might be a document found, something that tries to connect you with a crime. And so what the police will do, because ordinarily the police can invite you, and I think that's what they've done in this case. They sent a letter of invitation. That's the initial process of an investigation into a matter.
But the fears are that when they invite him, because it's that SARS office in Guzape, he has a reputation. Former SARS office in Guzape. And one of their fears is that when they invite him over, they might not let him go.
Yeah, I think...
Are those genuine fears?
Those fears are unfounded, because just look at, you mean you can just take the president of NLC without any strong suspicion or information that he was involved in a crime. But the idea of investigation is to see if the person alleged or suspected has any link with a crime. And how do you gain clarity in that? It is when you invite the individual and say, look, we need information regarding this. Do you know anything about it? It's just to elicit information from you if you do know. And the beauty of it is the police can go and hide and arrest you, but they didn't arrest you. What did they do? They gave a letter of invitation. That letter of invitation has given you that latitude to consult with your lawyer or friends. Look, I have this letter. And then once you are invited with a letter, you can tell them, look, you asked me to come on Monday, 25th. On Monday, 25th, I'm already engaged in one program, which I was invited before this your program. Please, can you give me 2-3 days, 2-4 days? Ordinarily, the police will let you. But the idea of an invitation later is to enable you to go to the police and offer an explanation. So it is not an arrest, but it is always a good thing. And as a gentleman, once you have that letter, the police has given you that respect. They didn't bring you people to your house, barricade your house, break into your house and drag you out. They said, look, you're a responsible member of the society. You're a patriotic citizen. We have this allegation against you. Is it true? Do you know anything about this allegation that we have? And then you go and clarify, clear yourself. And how do you clear? You want to go, you can go with a lawyer, and so your lawyer will sit by you, and they ask you, well, I know something about this. I don't know anything about this. And it's a process. It's an investigation. So that is how you start an investigation. And but there is no need for us to hit the country or the polity by trying to sensationalize this matter, because I think there was a raid in that office, and I think they might have recovered some exhibits as stated by the first PRO.
Well, and so let's go to that then. Let's see if we can get that timeline again, just so we can see exactly what happened from the beginning of this whole drama. August the 7th, 2024, the NLC initially, that's the headquarters in Abuja, raided by security agents. And it was in very early hours of the day. Security operatives ransacked the property and the documents in that property. And then the NLC at the time said this raid was unwarranted and brutal. And at the time, they accused the agents of intimidating and violating democratic norms. There were initial suspicions at the time there was DSS, but the DSS said, it's not us. This is not us. And then, of course, the DSS spokesperson said the agency did not conduct it. But what we found out later was that the police had issued a clarification that it was his personnel, and that the operation was aimed to apprehend a foreign national, just so we can get those details, a foreign national who's suspected of criminal activities. And that raid was, conducted at a shop that is within the NLC building and not targeting the NLC itself. Then they sent that invitation. So let's talk about that whole part of pursuing a foreign national. Let's say a foreign national was coming into my house, from time to time. Let's say I have a nice patio and he comes in there to drink coffee. And then I don't know who he is, he just comes in there to drink coffee from time to time. Can I be called for questioning if he's suspected to be a terrorist or committed a crime of any sort?
I think we should get to a level we can trust and have confidence in our security forces, particularly the Nigeria Police Force. When they come with a valid search warrant to search a property, and if in the course of the search they find documents that link you with any crime, and or a statement, something recovered in that area. After all, the NLC has the president, the secretary, and other officials. But if the police find, and I think the police will know, police is smart, and I think they are, because they are not going to invite the president of the NLC if you don't have a strong ground. And so in the course of search, I believe they might have found something that is suspicious and in line with the statutory duty of the police as provided by the Constitution, that if you have suspicion about somebody involved in a crime, that individual can be invited to offer clarification. And in doing that, and I feel if somebody of the status of the NLC president begin to even be afraid of the police, that if I go, the police will just clamp you in detention. I don't think the police is going to do that, and I think they will never do that.
Can I be found culpable if I had an apartment, right? If I had maybe I had 2 floors in my apartment, and I rented downstairs because I need some money. And I rented downstairs to somebody, and the person was, you know, living there. I don't have anything personal with this person. Just I take rent from this person from time to time, and that person is there. And then police said they're investigating this guy, and they say the guy is culpable. If he's even found guilty of being a criminal or committing some kind of offense, is there any way that I can be culpable in this matter?
No, you know, it's not about culpability now, because we've not reached that level. The level we are...
If we got to that level, if we did get to that level, if we got there, can I be held culpable?
Let me tell you an example, and let me give you an extreme example. I recall in those days in jails, some individuals, when we were just having these cases of advanced fee fraud, it was not very much known then. And you see somebody come and take a beautiful house, furnish the place, invite people, and after a while, they vanish into the air. And the people that have gone to transact business in those in that property, you never find them. Where do you go? You've got to find the person, because the person may have some documentation. If you are going to give out your property of rent, the person has to identify himself. Where do you work? What do you do for a living? Where is your ID card? You should have that information. So if, for example, this person is strongly believed to be involved in the crime that the police has alleged, and that's a national security issue, that whoever needs to be questioned will be questioned, irrespective of the status of the individual. So if the police, in the course of this, say, well, this property, so many floors, a big building, I've been there a couple of times, and this has happened. Now, I don't know if the police has questioned other officials that were involved in giving out this property to that individual that appears to have vanished into thin air. You've got to start the investigation somewhere. And the initial process is to ask, well, this guy, we found some documents that show your signature is there. We found communication, either otherwise, that the guy had with you. And other people we have questioned made statements touching something that you know something about this individual. We can't find him. And everybody we ask, say, look, perhaps that transaction was conducted with the president. And so the police will not go ahead and arrest the NLC president. And they will start their investigation, say, look, come. And I'm sure it is not only the NLC president that would have been invited. Others might have invited. Of course, the NLC president is a big person. But we'll have that civic responsibility to respond to police invitation. Because if all of us go, once police invite you, because I was end SARS, end bad governance and all that, police is, after all, I don't think that bad governance was done by NSC or whatever. So, and I think, if I were the NSC president, I would go. It is the way business is conducted while I was with them. Then I have a solid ground, and I will give a world press conference. I went to the police, this, that. And I think when the police give you a letter of invitation, it's a way of extending respect to you. Because that, and you can take advantage of that by consulting with your lawyer, your friends, and those you want to go with you to the police station, 1 or 2 individuals that you have confidence in. So because of course, in this case, you know it's the police that invited you. It's not somebody coming to say, come and see me in one garden, and you go and they never see you again. But the police, the first PRO had made, in one of your interviews, had made those made statement of the suspicion that warranted the invitation of the NSC president. So if I were the NSC president, let me go and hear what they have to say. If they're going to clap me in detention without an offense, and with my lawyer, at least they will tell the world. And there are certain positions you occupy. You've got to be ready for some of the hazards of those positions.
That position.
Yeah.
Well, the Trade Union Congress and the National Human Rights Commission, they're condemning that raid. They said it is, they're asking for an investigation as to why the raid was even done in the first place. And they're concerned about the implications for, I want to use your words, concerned about the implications for democracy and freedom of expression, and demanding accountability for those involved in that raid. Is there a fear like I stated earlier, that our civic space is being shrunk even further and actually putting fear in the minds of people. If the NLC president can be called in, who are the rest of us? You know, I think that's the overwhelming feeling. You know, so is there any fear of that? So do you think this is happening?
I think there's a product of perception, which may be right and may not be right.
Well, perception is many people's reality. If it does feel like whenever you express yourself or you engage yourself, you have freedom of association.
That's correct.
Now, if my association with you is putting me in a situation where I can be called in for questioning, isn't that shrinking my freedom and things like that?
You see, there are occasions that the police have stopped you and asked you to pull over. And maybe the vehicle you were driving fits a description of a crime that vehicle was used to commit. And they stop you, say, you freeze, your back to your hand. And sometimes they go to the extent of putting handcuffs on you, and they search. Oh, and they say, oh, we are sorry. And they just let you go. But I don't think they are doing that here. In this case, they are saying, look, come and clarify this issue that have been alleged. If the NLC president, after honoring that invitation, and then he observes, because his lawyer will be there, and from what I see, he's got one of the very vocal lawyers in this country, and he's gone there, and the question they're asking him, it tends to intimidation, then all these statements will now come more powerfully. Because everything you are saying, he has not been questioned. You don't know what they are alleging him. You are not privy. I'm not privy to what they've alleged him. So if I begin to put the cart before the horse, I might even miss the point. So, but what I'm saying is, we all have a civic responsibility to respect public institutions. But when we have done that, and they go beyond the line, and then we now know, okay, we now know why our president was invited, and all the noise will go, and then they will force either the government or the police to apologize and all this. What I think is, if I were in his position and ask, because the position he occupies is so important, and then we've got to say that we've got to calm tension in this land.
What are your thoughts on the threats of a protest if anything happens to him?
Well, I will not comment on the protest. You know why? Because he's not been questioned. It is the way he's treated when he goes there. But I think the treatment from the beginning, by giving him a letter of invitation, has shown respect for his office. Otherwise, they just see him. And I think they requested for August 29th. I'm sure the police is going to oblige them that day, because it happens all the time. Sometimes people meet me, say, look, oh, they have asked us to come. Somebody went and did this. I didn't know, I wasn't there. I say, police is not a ghost. Police will not swallow you. Go there. If after you, I always advise people, if after you have gone there and you see that the thing is becoming something you don't, becoming monkey business, then I will now ask that officer who invited you, what is this? And most of the time they come and say, sorry, we went, they didn't even say anything, just ask us whether we knew about this, and they let us go. And they say, oh, I didn't know police are so good.
That kind of faith. They actually believe that this whole thing is a way of obscuring the real motives.
No, let me...
They believe that there's an ulterior motive for this raid by the police. So they're not buying this.
No, let me tell you, when with the police and the NLC, by my experience and the experience of other officers, I was Commissioner of Police in the FCT. I've had cause to monitor their protests a number of times. I've gone to their secretariat. I monitored election of the immediate past president of NLC at the Eco Square. I know all that. And despite all that was going on, we maintained our ground, we were calm. There was no complaint. So NLC and the police don't, in fact, you've not had any NLC protests devolving into violence. Most of them, I was there, we left, I monitored them from Beggar under bridge through Wuse Market. And while we're going, when they get to a point, other unscrupulous individuals want to join, they will say, look, AC. Then I'll say, so these guys are not part of us. So I think the NLC have a history of cooperation and collaboration with the police. But they shouldn't prejudge there should no premeditation. Let them just wait and go the way they are treated. So, and it's good we support public institutions, especially the police. There is insecurity. We shouldn't discourage the police.
Let's bring in my colleague in Lagos. Ajaero has a few questions for you.
Well, thank you, Kayla. So, you know, maybe you want to first, let me begin by asking you what this says to public trust in the police.
Well, police inviting somebody as part of an investigation, and I think the police will be failing in their duty if they have a strong ground to suspect that an individual is involved in a crime, and the police will chicken out because that individual occupies a powerful position. And I don't want a police force that is easily cowed. I don't want a police force that will be afraid of performing its duty.
No, that's not a... I'm asking you to, you know, help us understand what this situation says about public trust and the timeliness of it. On the one hand, I mean, if you listen to the words coming from the NLC, their position is that this is an attempt by the federal government to subject or subdue the voice of the NLC, of the civil society, because going to the NLC headquarters at a time when everyone was talking about bad governance and there's been protests all across the nation, and the NLC, you know, is also raising its voice about one thing or the other. Now, there are those who would wonder it is because of the situation, the opposition of the NLC in some issues that this is happening. So that's the reason for the question around trust, public trust. Because if the people were as confident, if the NLC was as confident in the police as you want us to believe that we should be, I don't think that the situation that the NLC is threatening this protest or this strike would occur.
That stage, because I expect that NLC as a critical national institution should have confidence in the police, and that if after honoring the police, being a responsible organization, being a civic-minded organization, will honor the police, and from the encounter they have with the police proves otherwise, then all this position can be taken. But for me to sit here and say, look, NLC should not go because there was NSAS and all that, if in between that something else happened. Imagine, for example, you have a disagreement with somebody, or you are discussing something, and suddenly that person does something. Won't you report to the police? So the question of trust is about respect for the rule of law. And because there is nothing you can say now when they've not had that interaction with the police, because he is going there. He will go there with his lawyer and one or two of his friends, and they will be there when he's being questioned.
You know, Mr. Inalegwu, the position, my sincere apologies,
intimidation.
If you can hear me.
Yeah.
The position, the question that I'm asking is essentially about what do you think the police can do to rebuild trust. That is, I think, the critical factor here. For someone to suspect that if I go to the police, they could arrest me, or if I go to the police, rightly or otherwise, that the police, of course, it is in the, I mean, Mr. Ajaero already made that known to us, that it is in the place of the police to invite anyone for questioning. And it is also in the place of the police, according to Mr. Ajaero, to forcefully enter in the event of strong suspicion. All of that is understood. I mean, I'll leave the lawyers to adjudicate on that. But the fact that that issue occurred and the NLC is already protesting ahead, irrespective of what the interrogation or conversation is going to be about, it would also all be in the space of conjecture. So I'm just wondering if a prominent institution, as you put it, as the NLC in the country, is not confident in the police, that speaks to trust. That speaks to the fact that the police, the people do not trust the police. So I'm asking you, is there any way we can begin to rebuild that trust deficit so that it's not every time someone, is invited by the police that they're afraid that the police is going to do them wrong?
I think that borders some respect for human rights. And I think it's a continuous process of reforming the police. I think there have been many occasions. And the police, I think, should engage more with the public, and so that the public get to understand them more. And I think effective communication, strategic communication to address some of these issues, the police being able to respond to critical incidents timely, the police being manifestly seen to respect human rights, all this is going to help to build people's confidence. But I think police all over, there is always that suspicion that whenever the police, especially when there are kind of tension in the land, people tend to believe that the police is yielding. But I want to tell you that police is one institution that tries to stay not leaning to the left or right. And I think a lot of police officers that you see are very professional. Of course, I'm not going to hold brief for some who are not that professional, because the police is one institution that is not for anybody. Police is for both the government, the governed, and the government. So the important thing is to improve on respect for human rights, that officers who go out of line are disciplined and the public is made aware. So I think if the police continue to do this work, people are going to trust them. But I think a lot of professionals in the police and will not allow themselves to be used by anybody, either by government, and that's why you find officers, if you meet with officers having conversation, either senior or junior officers, a lot of them that have passed through the process of proper training of the police, because they know if you commit an offense now, in another, if you support other government or an individual commit an offense, it could take 10 years, you can say be brought back. Every police officer in performing his duty know that he is accountable overall to the public, and that you must be blind to influence by people. But look at the law. What does your law say? What does the process, the police rules and regulation, first orders and first administrative instructions, if you are guided by that, and a lot of officers are encouraged to read those books so that they acquaint themselves, because if you follow the rule of man, you are going to sink. So, and I think the process of reform and being sensitive to behavior and conduct of police and taking firm disciplinary action. And that is why the Police Service Commission has an important role to play in this regard, the police management team. So the police is not, whether this government comes, that government goes, that's not the business of police. But what does the law say? The police is blind to any influence. Police will follow the law. So all I want to say is there must be improvement, I believe, in respect for human rights. There must be more community engagement. People must see the police to be competent, and when you report to them, they'll do the right thing. And I think gradually they'll begin to build more trust. But it's always, even a child is crying, our police will come. So the public should also begin to change such mindset. If you tell a child that is crying, police will come and arrest you. All this go to affect the way the police is portrayed, and that's why people are afraid when the police call them. It's not necessarily by the conduct of police, but that public conception that is developed, that is brought even to children from the beginning, to see police as people that will just arrest you. But if you are not an offender, the police will not come for you. If they come for you, there are litigations open to you to claim a lot of money from the police.
Well, that is assuming that the police has that money, because we've been able to believe that the police itself, needs a lot of intervention. Well, now to the other side, which is the other side, the side of the NLC itself. Part of the statements that Mr. Adejobi, the first PRO, has made about this is that the NLC is a landlord, and that they only went to based on information available to them, to go into a particular place and find out exactly, what is happening to one of the tenants of the NLC in this particular matter. Now, so far, we have heard the side of the NLC way louder than that of the police, it would seem. Unless someone is really looking for it, many people may not even be aware of the statements that the police has put out, and the statements that the police, the first PRO, has made about this particular issue. Whatever information that is available to them, so that people can know that there is an argument, that the police does have an argument for even coming up with this matter in the first place. I think those are also critical issues. I mean, you've spoken about the need for the police to communicate effectively, but to the specifics of this particular case, what does the police need to put out? What do the people need to know so that they can understand the perspective or the position of the police on this specific case of the president of the NLC being invited?
There are instances that you don't divulge so much information. And I think if you listen to the first PRO, he was very careful in the information he released to the public. Because if you have not interviewed or interrogated those people that you need to speak with, and you come up to begin to be so much disclosure, you might take steps that might affect your investigation. And so you try to have a grip of the matter by the number of people you have interviewed or interrogated, and then you come up with a statement to the public. Especially now that you have a situation where there are so many suspicion and perception that perhaps the police is being used to harass the president of NLC or anybody for that matter. So, and then the police is saying this involves treason. This involves, it is even beyond Nigeria. It goes more. And so, if the police have not got sufficient information, if people are even refusing to go and have that conversation with the police, and the police, so I think the only thing that may be available to the police at the moment is to see that from the search we conducted, this is what we found. And we need to have a confirmation whether this is true. We need to have a confirmation whether this guy is involved. Because what is the essence of investigation? You try to see how you can link those alleged with a crime or otherwise. And when you don't find, and so when you see that, look, what we have found is not what we thought. But if now the police begin, because it's pushed into disclosing more, and that becomes a weapon. Because if it's international, it means the people, the accomplices outside these shores, or the guy who has escaped, apparently who has fled, you begin to give him a weapon to dig in more. So the police, with the way things are going, because the police right now will not want to say anything. I imagine, I'm no longer a police officer, I've retired, but I imagine they will think that if we say more, they are going to read more meanings into it. Let us wait and hear. 29th is not far. We will not go ahead and arrest the NLC president. We will wait. When we hear, and I think it's time for us to rise to begin to support the police, and then call them out, those who are not doing well, so that action will be taken against them. Because for a society to develop, you've got to have an effective police force. You can't have development without security. And the police being having primacy on internal security is in a position
we really do want to
create that environment.
Mr. Inalegwu. We really do want to trust the police. A good number of people in the various parts of the country have had not too pleasant experiences with the police, which will be explored and exploited by, criminal-minded people saying, well, they have caught me again and I didn't do anything. And people are going to believe those people before they believe the police, even if, and in cases where the police does have a case. So it goes back to the issue of building trust that we spoke about earlier, because there are those members of the police force that have defaced and, they have messed up the name of the police simply because they have the authority to wear the uniform. They take undue advantage and they exploit that power to terrorize other people, common citizens such as themselves, without the uniform. So it goes back to the issue of building that trust and that confidence. People need to know one thing or the other so that they can believe that indeed the police has a case. At this stage, what would you recommend that the police does and that the people should do?
And I think, I want to start from the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission represents a broad spectrum of the population. You have the President of Women's Society, you have civil society, you have the Justice of the Supreme Court retired and all that. And I think the public has a critical role to play. The reform of the police is not going to be only internally driven. It also has to be externally driven. And the people must set a target for the Police Service Commission. Because the Police Service Commission is external. It represents the Nigerian people. So they should hold them also accountable. We are seeing our police deteriorate to this extent. What are you doing about it? And it's not just about recruitment. So I think the public have a role to play, and I think they are not playing their role.
It's interesting that you brought up the Police Service Commission, because that's a very important conversation.
Yeah.
When there's a new head of the Police Service Commission, but whenever we hear about the Police Service Commission, one of the first things we always hear is recruitment. While recruitment is important and we need more policemen, what's been done? I mean, it used to be CPA, you know, and you're an AIG, former AIG. What's been done about the way the police is being perceived by the public? Even yesterday, we had to deal with a policeman who was being unruly at the Area 1 roundabout. People had to come out of their cars to talk to this policeman, and he was being violent and unruly at the time, and he was alone. He mounted a checkpoint alone at the Area 1 roundabout. So we had to report, you know, to his office, and I really like the prompt response of the FCT Police Command. You know, but back to the question, what's being done about the training required for your policemen to be able to interface with the public? That way we can build back this trust that we've lost in the police.
And I think if we see the effort the police management team is making, and I think the Police Service Commission, to some extent, is also complementing them, it's an everyday thing. As a commissioner of police, as a DPO, your erring officers, you rein them in all the time. If the public are aware, and I think it's time that the police begin to release, maybe on a weekly basis, the number of disciplinary action taken against erring police officers. And the public know
like
that...
a weekly update.
Yeah, a weekly update. And I think the police is very mindful of the conduct of our officers, because that affects the way they are perceived. But I think the police is one institution that is involved in more self-cleansing than any other organization. This police is one organization that if you make a report, action will be taken. But the public are not even up to the level of the police in terms of internal discipline. In other organizations, you go, the officers cover them up. But I tell you, the police do not cover their own. But I think more because of the critical position the police occupy. But I think the public, in calling the police to perform, should also look at the area of resources, the area of remuneration, the area of retirement benefits, even that gratuity. So you are demanding so much from the police, but the police is still provided for. So that's also important. But what I want to say, every Nigerian, the public, the Police Service Commission, the police management team, all must come together, and then we can have the police force of our dream. But this is a country that people don't believe in laws. It goes to a point that people are driving against one way, you arrest them, they say you are looking for money. So the public should again come up. So you cannot isolate the police for blame. In terms of being responsible, I think the police is more responsible than many government institutions and many Nigerians. Because the police have this self-cleansing thing, and they are doing it all the time. Maybe that is why the police is being called out, because all the time you hear they have arrested one policeman, he's doing they have dismissed. So the public think they have the greatest number of offenders, but that's not the case. But I look forward to a police force that is world-class. That police force that goes on international peacekeeping mission and come with a lot of accolades. That's the police I want for my country.
Well, we do have to wrap it up there. I'm looking at a lot of the comments people are making on our conversation here. One of the things that one line that's running through these comments is that the police cannot engender trust in the Nigerian people in isolation. You can't be winking in the dark. You have to be able to engage more, put better policemen on the streets who engage better with the people, and then try to get the trust of the Nigerian people. In wrapping up, we'll be wishing you all of the best. Mr. Inalegwu, thank you so much.
The pleasure is
Mr.
mine.
Wilson Inalegwu, for being here with us on the program. Former AIG of Police, Wilson Inalegwu, joining us here on Sunrise Daily. Business Morning is up next. Stay with us.